I'm Tom Robertson, and I am co-founder of Interactive Science in 3D, or Cogent Education, as it will be soon. I think biology was more interesting to me than the other sciences because it was so relatable to the real world. You know, chemistry was very abstract. It was shapes of molecules on a piece of paper with some arrows connecting them, and let's say, when an electron pops off here, okay, great, I have no idea what that is. But if you talk about biology and you're talking about, you know, a frog or a cow or whatever, or a plant, that's tangible to me. When I was 17, we had to go see the career advisor in school, and he said, "So, what do you like?" I didn't have a clue. I said, "I like biology and I like solving puzzles." And he says, "Okay, we'll send you for a week at the University of Manchester in the Department of Pharmacology." So I had to go look at what that word was to start. But what changed my life was when I spent a year working in industry at what was then Beecham's Pharmaceuticals. Because in our university course, you'd do 2 years coursework, spend a year in industry, and then come back and do a final year. And it was that year in industry which completely switched on the lights in my head in terms of being a researcher, and perhaps I should try harder in school and get a better degree. One of the veterinarians that we worked with, Dr. Jim Moore, he'd been using 3D animations to help veterinary students learn anatomy. You know, because that kind of 3D visualization can really help students learn anatomy rather than looking at a flat 2D image in a book. The cellular world is so dynamic and shape changes are so important. It's virtually impossible to get that across with a traditional approach of a textbook or a PowerPoint. Yeah, and these beautiful 3D animations and the technology that was coming to the fore at that point, you know, we're getting movies like Shrek and Toy Story. Having those technologies become affordable for universities and for researchers to make 3D animations that are really compelling and accurate made a light bulb go off in my head that introducing tech into education can have huge benefits for science, because science can really be very obscure to many people because you can't see much of science. And if you can make things like animations and 3D worlds and virtual worlds and games where you can make that visible, then you can make that learning so much easier, much more accessible to people. There was a professor in the College of Education called Steve Oliver who came to see me and Jim, and he said, "I love what you're doing in terms of these 3D animations for undergraduates. Can we do something for schools?" And Jim and I said, "Yes, we can certainly try." And then Jim and Steve probably spent the next 3 years writing grant applications to try and get funding to make something for schools science education. And then in 2008, we were funded by ORIP through the Science Education Partnership Award. I guess the biggest thing I've learned over the past decade now of writing grants is that it's absolutely vital that you are addressing a real problem. You know, you may think you're addressing a real problem, but in terms of, especially with SBIRs, if your customer doesn't have the same opinion of you, doesn't value your solution as you do, then you're wasting your time. You have to go out there and do your customer discovery, whether it's in academia or in business. You have to make sure that the research that you're doing has true value. And let's say if you're doing an SBIR, go and find 20 customers, present the problem as you see it, and then, or better still, ask them what the problem is for them first of all, and then come up with a solution. But if you have an idea and a solution, go and check with them, go and find 20 people that confirm it, and then once you've done that, go and find another 20, and another 20, until you've got a real good mass of opinion that supports what you're going to do. The way I approach an SBIR application is just as I would write a business plan. First of all, you've got to identify a problem. Then you've got to go to the customer and provide support that that is a real problem. Then you've got to design a solution, take that design for the solution back to the customer, see if they see value in it. Then you've got to make a budget for that solution. Then you're going to have to put in the team in place to do that. You know, what skill sets do you need on the team to test the feasibility in phase 1 or rigorously evaluate the product in phase 2? Then you've got to try and find support from an industry partner, okay? Because if you're starting a company and you're on your own, you've got no brand awareness, nobody knows who you are. If you can find an industry partner that's well respected, that provides a huge amount of weight to your application. And then you've got to write the application in terms of write the research strategy first, then write the specific aims, and then write the abstract. That's the order in which I do it. Once we knew that we were going to go after an ORIP SBIR grant, and using our experiences of failing with our SBIR applications in the previous years, we kind of had, we were able to knock the rough edges off our applications and make them much more polished and much more forward-thinking, because you can't think about a phase 1 grant, which is feasibility, without thinking how that's going to translate into phase 2. You know, what's the bigger picture, and how are you going to prove and evaluate that bigger picture in phase 2. So we were able to present a phase 1 project to ORIP that was highly innovative in terms of its approach to science education, but also had a forward-thinking, bigger picture attached to it, so that the reviewers can kind of get a glimpse of, you know, what's the bigger impact for this, you know, rather than it just being, we're going to make a little game. So writing an SBIR is very different from writing, let's say, an R01 or an academic grant. And when we started out, we got help from Julie Turner-Collins at Georgia Tech, who is the state resource for SBIR grant applications. She's there to help you change your grant writing style to an SBIR. And when we first sent the first draft to her, it came back covered in red ink. And me and Jim, we'd written grants together for a decade and been quite successful at it. And we go back and we're like, oh, this is different. There's always resources within your state, people who are there to help you and guide you through that. And we also got help from the Georgia Bio Business Center on campus here, the Small Business Development Center here, and the Technology Commercialization Office, who all offered resources in terms of, you know, eyes on pages, giving you feedback, telling you how things should be structured, working with budgets and things like that. When you start thinking about phase 2, if you've waited until you've done phase 1, you're too late. You need to be thinking about phase 2 from the day you start doing phase 1. As soon as you start doing that research and the feasibility, you've got to be looking at phase 2. Because part of phase 2 is a 12-page commercialization plan. And that is an actual business plan that you have to present. And if you don't make a good case for being financially viable and profitable with the product that you're producing, you won't get funded. During the SEP project, one of the technologies that we developed was an interactive game called Aussie Osmosis. And it was developed by one of our founders, Casey O'Donnell. And he's a game designer, and he has very strong opinions about science education games. Specifically, that the vast majority of science education games out there are pretty poor games. Kids don't really like them because they're not very much fun to play. And he said, first and foremost, make a game that's fun to play and make the science the mechanic of the game. So as you're playing the game, you're using the science to beat the game, and that'll give you a much better product. With the funding that we got in phase 1, what we did was develop a prototype of a game called Nurbits. And Nurbits is a game where students make music by solving puzzles. And in the puzzles, basically, they're connecting notes on a musical scale and forming loops and then composing basically songs out of that. But the key thing is that the way that they connect the notes on that musical scale is using the same principles and mechanisms whereby the nerve cells in your brain communicate with each other and function. So it's along our ethos of make the science the game mechanic, but make sure you put it in a really fun and engaging game. And where we are at the moment is that we've developed a game, we've taken it into classrooms, we've done several iterations of the prototype, and we've got great data showing that the students like playing it and that the teachers value it. And we've also got preliminary data showing that the kids are learning neuroscience concepts with it. This could be a feasible approach to a new way for students to learn about neuroscience. And what we hope is, if the phase 2 grant is funded, is it to expand the breadth and the kind of ambition for that approach and that game to cover other neuroscience topics and cover how the brain communicates with the rest of the body and how cells and neurotransmitters function within the brain, so that you've got this beautiful, engaging interface of music and problem solving. But the way that you're solving those problems is by learning these key biological and neuroscience concepts. The original idea for Nurbits came from the game designers on the team. It was from Casey O'Donnell, who's one of the founders, and Stephen Borden, who's the principal investigator on the grant, and several other team members. And they just whiteboarded it one day. They said, okay, what are we trying to teach? We're trying to teach about threshold and pruning and excitotoxicity. And they had the neuroscientists in the room, so the neuroscientists could answer questions about what those terms meant and what they were. And they said, okay, well, it's a pattern matching thing. And then it's a puzzle game. And then it all came to it. Oh, well, it should be music and beats and rhythms and timing. And then it came up to what was Nurbits after several iterations. We formed the company in 2010, and I took the lead on kind of the business side of things. A few of us got together and we were writing the grants, but I took the lead on the business thing, and so I had to learn about payroll taxes, learn how to use QuickBooks, do the incorporation with the state, get all the tax filings done, get all the business license, business insurance, register with 10 different federal websites so that we're eligible for the SBIR process, which is a really important part of that process. But yeah, and I had to do all of this outside of my teaching time, outside of my faculty time. I was working 50, 60 hours a week for the university. Well, when you start your business, you got to tack on another 30, 40 hours a week just to get the business off the ground. And that's tough. So if you're going to do it, make sure you know what you're letting yourself in for. One of the things that did help me was finding a CPA, and they also provide what they call an SBIR starter pack. And it provides a pre-coded QuickBooks, version of QuickBooks, that has all the categories you need so that you are financially correct and keeping your accounts as the federal government would like you to if you're going to get federal funding. And that was huge. And they also provided oversight. So I was doing all the bookkeeping, I was doing all the accounting, putting everything in, and then once a month they would check through and make sure I hadn't screwed up. We were quite lucky. The first people that we hired into the company were actually people that had worked on the SEPA project. And that was one of the main reasons we started the company, was because academia isn't self-sustaining. When you get a 5-year grant, the first 3 years of that we were creating materials, so we had money for a software developer and an artist. Well, in the 4th and 5th year, you're going to schools and you're testing it and evaluating it. When you've run out of money for the people that make it real. So we decided, no, let's make something sustainable. And then when we started the company, they were just about to run out of money for those talented people at UGA, and we said, okay, would you like a job? Which is the best part of my life for the past 3 years, is going to a young, talented professional and saying, would you like a job in science education? Before we even applied for the grants, I made sure I knew what salaries I would need to pay to get the talent I needed. If you take a guess and you go under, you're not going to get the talent you need to do the job you need doing for the grant. So the first thing I did is I went out and I talked to local programmers and artists about what they were getting paid and what would be a reasonable salary for our area in those jobs. And I based it all off that. And I actually added a couple of points extra on top, just because I wanted really good people to come and join the company from the get-go.